I often wonder how many creators fear their legacy. Seems like a weird thing to be afraid of, since there are a lot of other abstract concepts to be terrified of that keep you awake as you ponder your own existence, but I think there's a correlation between legacy and the fear of being forgotten. And hey, that is a recognised phobia, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce, so clearly it's a problem that enough people have to warrant it being a condition. It has to apply to people involved in the creation of video games, since these days, entire careers are just a few clicks away, readily available for analysis and scrutiny. And if you've taken all your fame and fortune from just the one video game, people are going to notice. Like me, I'm probably going to notice, because while there are many developers out there with a multitude of money-spinning franchises in their roster, it is very easy to forget how many developers are unable to replicate success beyond just the one video game. For a variety of different reasons though. There are some wild stories in this one. Think about it, why would a developer ever fail to release more than one hit video game? Is it a lack of consistency, or the pressure weighing too heavily, or is it in fact something far crazier and more difficult to explain? I'm probably going to be focusing on that third one during this video, because you might be surprised to find out just how many developers can be considered one-hit wonders. In case you don't know, that term comes from the world of pop music, where an artist makes it big with only one song, but video games bring up some more interesting scenarios. Are some developers one-hit wonders because they only made one great game, or is it because they only made one game that was really good? I don't know, but I look forward to finding out. I hope you do too. If I wanted to, I could fill this entire video with indie games, since not every indie dev really wants to make a full-time career out of making video games, or they try really hard throughout their career, attempting to repeat the success and quality of their best game while ultimately coming up a little bit short. Plus, indie devs tend to be new studios that literally haven't had the time to make more than one video game. Those do not count. There were definitely a lot of contenders for indie games, but quite a lot of them are fairly recent. It seems a bit unfair to me to say that Doki Doki Literature Club is the only good game that Team Salvato ever made, for example, since it's the only game they've made and they're likely to make more in the future. Most indie developers who have already struck gold are likely to keep going, but most devs aren't Phil Fish. The indie scene would certainly be a lot different and a lot smaller if they were, but at least we'd have a lot of really fun, creative video games before every single developer decided to swear off making future video games because they got into a few incendiary arguments on the internet. And a long development period for your one game that was recorded for a lengthy documentary that hinted at events to come. But at least it was fun while it lasted. A career that ended on Twitter seems like a very 2020 style phenomenon, but Phil Fish's brief run-in with the video game industry blew up spectacularly as a result of lengthy beefs with other individuals within the industry, culminating in a huge meltdown that has since been deleted along with every other tweet that Fish wrote on his account. Fez remains his only game, and it is honestly pretty decent for the problems it had during development. Very creatively made, that's for sure, with all the rotating along a three-dimensional plane within a 2D world, and I would have loved to see what new things would have been explored in the sequel, but yeah, that's not gonna happen. But hey, at least Fish made a fair bit of money and got plenty of infamy in the process. It's now a foot race between Half-Life 3, Beyond Good and Evil 2, and Fez 2 for what comes out first. Not exactly a spectator sport, is it? Video game development is a fucking nightmare. It doesn't have to be though, but these days major developers have so much to do within such tight time constraints that it's practically impossible to get a game over the line without crunching. You know, besides giving your employees ample time to do their work so they have the ideal environment that avoids issues like creative burnout and becoming overstressed. But what are the chances of your average AAA studio doing anything like that? Team Bondi had a short lifespan as a development studio, lasting just 7 years before folding in 2011, following the release of just the one video game. 7 years is a long time to make only one game though, although maybe not so much when that game is as complex and as revolutionary as L.A. Noire. Does that justify putting staff in bad working conditions with 12-hour workdays and rapid turnover rates? I don't think any game ever would be. You have to imagine that the early concepts of LA Noire were very encouraging because it didn't take long until industry giants Rockstar came in to help with the development and publishing of the game. This helped to get the game off the ground into some kind of finished state, since Team Bondi's plans were exceedingly ambitious and required a lot of time, money and expertise to get face scanning technology working as intended. Some money was poured into this project with reckless abandon, which led to Bondi racking up huge debts that just couldn't be repaid even after LA Noire came out and did quite well, with both commercial and critical success. Bondi's relationship with Rockstar grew strained mainly because of all those reports of bad working conditions, with Rockstar refusing to publish any more of Bondi's games, and with their backs against the wall, Team Bondi were bought out and closed down 5 months after LA Noire's release. It's mad to think that what is now a Rockstar property was a result of one of the most tumultuous developments ever seen from a game. Maybe if Team Bondi had respected its employees, they'd still be around to this day. Sounds easy when you put it like that. Whenever an indie developer becomes responsible for a very important video game, a lopsided legacy is practically inevitable. If you're fortunate enough to create such an influential game, it's hard as shit achieving anything even close to this with another game. Just look at J.K. Rowling after the Harry Potter books. The casual vacancy was apparently half decent, but I sure know a lot of people who couldn't give a fuck. There's no magic here, why should I give a shit? The fact remains that any follow-up games after Minecraft were never likely to hit similarly lofty heights as the single best-selling game to date, leaving the developers Mojang with the unlikely task of attempting to be more than a one-hit wonder. Can't imagine that anyone ever thought that was gonna go well. To be fair to Mojang, they've worked really well with Microsoft to ensure that the game is updated and the fans are engaged, and I feel like I can't complain too much that they haven't really translated the success onto a new property, since Minecraft still generates them a ton of money. But with that money, couldn't they do something interesting with it? Though it has to be said, not for the lack of trying. Obviously you can't top Minecraft because that's a silly idea, but Mojang have put their name to Caller's Bane, a digital card game, and Crown and Council, a quirky little strategy game. Not exactly massive projects that make the most of all that lucrative Minecraft moolah, but as long as Mojang are happy with their business model, then I can't complain. Besides, Minecraft is the kind of game that you can easily become reliant on, and Mojang will do well as long as they continue to support it for as long as they can, and release an update where it will randomly start raining reminders that if you're enjoying this video and want to see more, then subscribe for more and hit the bell for notifications of every new video. A large part of me wants to see what Mojang would be capable of if they went big on a new project without trying to directly surpass Minecraft, but for now they're comfortable making other Minecraft-centric games like Dungeons, and their dip into augmented reality with Minecraft Earth. Hopefully one day they'll go for something crazy in the future, or just make Minecraft 2. Mate, with the amount of money these guys have, they could build colonies on the moon. I would not stop them. There are some goddamn fascinating stories to unpack here. No game studio ever sets out to create just the one good video game, but sometimes things don't go as planned, and that one good video game sticks out very far among a catalogue of genuinely terrible video games. But what if that one good video game was actually like one of the best games of all time? How can you be that good only once? It's that portion of the video where I have to talk about John Romero and his band of merry men again. Strap yourselves in, there's a bumpy ride up ahead. id Software can lay claim to some of the most important first-person shooters of all time, with games like Doom and Wolfenstein, and with so much positivity and hype surrounding the company and some of its developers, like John Romero and Tom Hall, they branched off and formed their own studio called Ion Storm. Great fucking name aside, Ion Storm's legacy is one of high expectations crashing violently into overconfidence and underdeveloped video games. With such high-profile individuals at the helm, games were beginning to lose the battle for top billing to the people who made them. This then bred complacency, which is where Daikatana and its bullshit marketing and crappy game design comes in. It is very hard to come back from a game as disastrous as this. And yet, Ion Storm made Deus Ex of all games. How the fuck did that happen? I didn't actually know that before making this video, and I'm now wondering if there's a huge gap in my knowledge of incredibly important video games. Deus Ex is comfortably one of the most impressive PC games ever made, and came about after the dev team were taken on by Ion Storm and given a chance to make the game of their dreams with plenty of financial backing. That explains how Deus Ex and its innovative open-choice gameplay matched with excellent production design was somehow released in the same year as the game that tried and failed to make you John Romero's bitch, with Daikatana going down as one of the biggest disappointments in video game history. Deus Ex was Iron Storm's peak, as it would be with most studios to be fair, but far from being the only game they developed themselves, since they squeezed out a subpar Deus Ex follow-up that never quite matches the same lofty levels of the original, plus Ion Studios took on the rights to make a new Thief game, which when given to the same team as those who had worked on Deus Ex, turned out to be pretty good but nothing too incredible. Still, for the brief 9-year period where Ion Studios existed, they can at least say they had a hand in making Deus Ex. Hardly something to be ashamed of. If there's one thing that every one-hit wonder I've mentioned up until this point has in common, I'd say it's probably the fact that they're all self-inflicted. Maybe all these developers didn't choose to make only one game of any great significance, but I don't think it would be stretching things too far to suggest that all of them were either directly or indirectly responsible for their own false dawns. And you feel like more could have been done by someone involved in all of this to eke out a more fulfilling library of games. Obviously there's an exception to all of this because I'm talking about it now we've reached number 1, because it's one thing only making one game of any note because of financial troubles or critical failings, but it's a completely different story when you account for government intervention. Those pesky governments always ruining our fun and racially profiling and encouraging police brutality and taking away Tetris from Alexei Payitnov. When will they ever learn? But yeah, it's weird and accurate to think that Tetris is Alexei Payitnov's primary achievement, since while he has gone on to make other games as recently as 2013, there's simply no topping Tetris. For the best part of 3.5 decades, it's been arguably the most recognizable puzzle game in all of gaming, and has sold over 200 million copies when including mobile versions, as well as the many different ports it got from the Commodore 64 to Nintendo doing stupid numbers on the Game Boy, and even the 10 super rare copies for the Sega Mega Drive. Tetris was everywhere when it came out, and it continues to be to this very day, so I think it was always ranging somewhere between unlikely to impossible that Payitnov could ever surpass it with a new game. Not that the Russian government did much to help. 1980s Russia was still heavily ingrained with a Soviet sense of all-inclusive brand of communism, so what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine, especially this fancy puzzle game that was created in a state-owned research facility that's definitely not yours. And so, in order for Tetris to be exported to the rest of the world and pull in those juicy sales numbers, the rights to the game had to be handed over to Elektronorg Technica. Yep, okay. A Soviet organization that handled all import and export of computer software and hardware in the Soviet Union. And they weren't too keen about giving Payitnov much credit or money for his work. It effectively shifted the developmental responsibility from one Soviet computer engineer to seemingly an entire country. There's a blurb on the back of this game which actually attributes it to the USSR. And even though Payitnov has said many times since that he never intended to make money from Tetris, the difficulties surrounding its licensing meant that Payitnov didn't make a penny off of this ridiculously popular game until 12 years after he helped to make it. I'm not entirely sure how much money that would be, but I reckon it's enough to make a sizable difference to Payitnov's game developing capabilities. Think of all the people he could have hired to help him with the career in games development that he had regardless. Maybe he would have made some Minecraft.
This is RabbidLuigi, and it's difficult to ascertain just what would have changed if Alexei Payitnov was allowed to make money on one of the most popular games of the 80s and 90s, but that is a huge amount of money that would have definitely made a difference, if potentially for the worse. Payitnov taking a back seat to its game's popularity allowed him to fill his career with fun personal projects and not have the pressure of being Mr. Tetris so much. You know, sometimes being a one-hit wonder has its perks.
Have you got a topic that you'd like me to talk about next week? Make sure you leave a comment about that down below, because I'll be taking the most interesting suggestions and making a poll on the next video. In fact, here's one right now that I prepared from last week.
I'll be revealing the winner of the poll on Twitter and taking suggestions for games to talk about that are related to that topic. So feel free to follow me over there so we can keep in touch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.